Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here.
Charles here.
So we are weeks away from the Diddy trial in New York, the criminal case where he could end up facing life in prison if convicted. And they still do not have a legal team locked.
They are actually trying to add to that legal team now. We're less than 3 weeks. I mean, this is almost as 11th hour as you can get.
Oh, yeah.
To be adding on a case like this that is so many layers and that
takes months to prepare.
But
months.
Diddy is looking for a specific kind of lawyer, and I think it kind of makes sense. He wants a black female lawyer to be standing with him as part of his team when this trial begins.
So, look, the part of this is obvious, isn't it? Why he wants a black female lawyer. I mean, given the backdrop, the charges, we've seen it before. We've seen this in other cases. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But this is not window dressing. They are specifically, we're told, and we have really good sources, we are told that they are looking for a black female lawyer with serious legal chops.
Right. This is not someone who's just going to be standing in court or sitting with the team for photos when they, or actually there won't be photos, it's federal court. But they want someone who's had experience and has chops for a case like this in federal court.
Now, without saying who, we know that certain lawyers have already been passed over because of that. So they're being very particular about it. But look, race is going to play a part in this case. We did a documentary. We've done actually 4 documentaries now on Diddy. And in one, his lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, made it very clear that race is going to be front and center.
Let's switch our focus to the government. In my opinion, I'm just going to say it the way it is. No friend historically of the successful black man. Okay? None. And they start making this case, in my opinion, as a takedown of a successful black man. Here's a man who has made some of the most important businesses owned by a black man. Run, owned, created, founded. The vision was that of a black man. What have we done? We have reduced him, not everyone, but a large amount of our society, to being a monster. That should make us shake in our boots.
So, Mark Agnifilo, obviously white.
Yes.
The co-counsel is Tenny Garrigus. White. And Mark Garrigus, her dad, who we're told is going to play a significant part in this case, white.
Well, and let's remember, you're going to have at least one witness and probably a parade of witnesses of black females who are going to claim they were victimized by Diddy. And so in order to give sort of a human face to that, maybe suggest that that's not the case, that it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the jury is finding cues in every piece of evidence, but also who's representing him. And if they just have a bunch of white folks sort of defending him, all those black female alleged victims maybe going to look like they're being targeted by his high-priced legal team.
How stunning, though, is it, Jason? 3 weeks out, and they don't have it.
Like, it makes sense. But the part that doesn't make sense is 3 weeks out.
Yeah, I guess it is sort of strange. I mean, I mean, it should have been an issue. One would have thought it was initiated by Agnifilo, right? And Garrigus, the head of the trial team. I don't know. It's an odd thing. I would have expected it by now for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they've known that the trial date has been set for several months. So this seems like a search that should have been happening in January or December.
Well, I mean, look, to get up to speed on a case like this, it generally takes months. I mean, months and months and months. This, you know, I can tell you, like Joe Tecopina, when he did A$AP Rocky, he worked on that case almost full-time for 8 months before the trial. So, and this is at least as complicated, it's way more complicated than A$AP Rocky.
Yes.
But we will see. I mean, they are on the hunt.
So we want to play you something here now. This is shifting gears a little bit, but it is one of Diddy's closest confidants, his friend Stevie J, who clearly is not only confident about what the outcome of this trial will be, but has some very specific ideas of what Diddy should do when the trial is over. And Stevie J clearly feels that Diddy's going to beat this, that he will be acquitted. Here's what he told us when we ran into him yesterday here in LA.
Of course, you know, the trial's coming up with Diddy.
Free the guy. Free the guy.
I know you said you think he's going to be cleared of all charges. You know, how do you think it's going to play out?
I mean, it's just a lot of attached to it. You know, you notice those 200 cases from that lawyer from, what's his guy, Busby or whatever? He can't even practice in New York.
What do you think about the industry going kind of silent about it? You know, all of his friends and...
If I was him, when I get out, I would none of them dudes. You know what I'm saying? I would just keep it family and close loved ones. I would actually have a Diddy party and invite everybody to the Diddy party and get on the mic if I was him and be like, yo, I never want to see you ever again type.
You think he can start the parties back up after this? You think it'll be the same?
They'll always go to a Diddy.
They're going to always go to a Diddy party. All right.
Absolutely.
Beg to differ.
Yeah.
Beg to differ. But I'm surprised at that because he was in one of our documentaries and he was way more cautious about it than they
I don't know what's happened in the last few months, why he feels more confident now. But yeah, I don't know. First of all, there's a long way to go before we get to Diddy's acquitted. If that were to happen, I can't imagine Diddy parties are what they used to be. Sorry, Stevie.
Sorry, Stevie.
Hi, my name is Zach Ross, calling from Huntington Beach, California. And with 3 weeks approaching, I'd be really anxious to find like the right lawyer. You know, with the consequences he's looking at, potentially life in prison, I don't know if I want to bet everything on having, you know, specifically a black female lawyer. I don't know if that's really the direction to go.
Well, he's not betting everything on it. This person obviously is going to be part of the team.
There is a legal team in place.
Yes.
Mark Agnifilo, who's a very accomplished lawyer, as is Tenny Garrigus.
Yeah.
They're, from all accounts, are going to be lead.
Well, they're the ones who are most up to date on the case.
Right.
They've had months to work on it.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Yes, to Will Smith's new album and a review of it. A very critical, harsh review of Will Smith's new album, coming from one Tony Rock.
Oh, he's got a dog in the fight.
Yes, he does. Well, I don't know if I would call him a dog. But
I didn't
Chris Rock,
mean...
but Chris Rock is a very accomplished comedian. But
No,
you call him your dog. I get it. You're tight.
Okay, well, my dog.
Yeah. Why did you have to do that?
I just had to.
Anyway, we got Tony Rock out, and you know, he has been, ever since the slap, has been very vocal in his support for his brother, and has...
More so than his brother.
Yes, like while Chris has stopped talking about it, Tony won't. And he believes that he has more reason now to talk about it after Will dropped this album. And listen to Tony's review of it. It is interesting for one very funny reason.
Will Smith has an album out, and it's a piece of and he addresses the Oscars. It's a good time to be a comic right now. Album's trash. I'm just assuming that. I haven't listened to it. I'm just protecting my brother. I'm my brother's keeper, that's all. This album probably because I haven't heard anything about it, other than, oh, he addresses your brother. If that's the only selling point, that's the album.
Does this make things worse or better? Will him and your brother have...
No. It's not. It's just this is the saying that I don't like, but this applies. It is what it is. Yeah. They ain't friends. They ain't gonna be friends. It is what it is.
Well, to be fair, it's not that Tony is not stopping talking about the slap. Will's track, his album, you know, renewed the conversation. So Tony had to react. I mean, everybody covered the song that, you know, Will was addressing. You know, he addressed it several songs, but, you know, it didn't even hit Billboard, so no one cared.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was going to say,
the problem.
What about his review, considering he hasn't actually even listened to it? But I guess he can look at the charts and go, well, it didn't chart. Didn't get on the top 200, which is the album chart, and
that's a big deal.
No, it's a real big deal. Will Smith actually has the first Grammy for a rapper. You know, like once upon a time, you know, he was a living legend with the microphone, and now like people are not even caring to even push play on the album. Everybody has Spotify, Apple Music.
Eric from San Francisco. I understand where Tony is coming from defending his brother, but if Will's going to drop an album, would he not talk about it? Like, what else would he rap about? The 20-year anniversary of Shark Tale? Like, he's trying to get these numbers going. Now, if he wanted to boost those numbers, he should have rapped over the I Like to Move It beat, but everybody's trying to benefit off this slap, including Tony. So what's the issue?
It didn't work.
Didn't work.
It didn't work for Will.
No, it hasn't worked for Will, although he has got a tour coming up. We'll see how that does once the world tour. So
Okay, we're going to take a break.
All right, when we come back, Luigi Mangione and all of his rabid fans. Is it possible that he could actually be acquitted? When we come back, DL Hughley is going to be here to state his case as for why he believes that could happen. And even if he was on the jury, it might happen. This is going to get heated when we come back. Tense moments for United Healthcare again. At their headquarters in Minnesota, where an armed man was parked outside the building, had phoned in threats, said he had issues with the healthcare company, and that he was prepared to, I think the words he used, that he was not going to be taken alive. Now, he was eventually taken alive.
Nobody got hurt.
No one was hurt, and police don't yet know if he was inspired by Luigi Mangione.
Or there was an interesting documentary on Sunday night on CNN where they were talking about just violence generally, that people are resorting to violence, and how the adulation around Luigi Mangione.
Yes, which is interesting that this happened the day after
That's right.
that aired. And there was one particular segment that really got people talking, where independent journalist Taylor Lorenz was talking to the host of the documentary, Donnie Sullivan. And this is what they had to say about Luigi Mangione. In just a moment, DL Hughley is going to join us to weigh in on this conversation.
Hilarious to see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals. So you're going to see women, especially, that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems this morally good man, which is hard to find.
Morally good man.
man.
Taylor says she was referring not to herself saying it, but the women that she's talking about who love Luigi Mangione.
Right.
So, look, there's a lot of support for what he did. And that's what we want to get into with DL. I know. But that's what we need to get into right now.
Yes, DL, welcome back to TMZ Live, my friend. How you doing?
Now, how you doing, baby?
We're good, man.
It's interesting because 2 years ago that would have been Kyle Rittenhouse. So it's interesting. So if we're going to be consistent about people who resort to violence, then we need to, and then our later line-outs, we need to make sure. Also, we live in a country right now where 10 years ago, 12 years ago, a black man tried to give this country the very healthcare that the healthcare CEOs in jeopardy for, and their prescription was to call him a treasonous and to resort to threatening violence against him. So this is clearly America, and that is always our default position. And we've accepted it. We accept that our schools have to have mass shooter drills. We accept this as a matter of parlance, as a matter of practice. And now to pretend as if all of a sudden some America's acting any differently is really disingenuous.
But hold on, but DL, there's a difference there, right? I mean, you're right that America has accepted all sorts of violence, but that doesn't mean that we have to celebrate someone, the image of someone pointing a gun to the back of someone's head and shooting them and killing them. Why are we celebrating that? Now we've reached a different level, right? I
don't know that we've reached it. I will say this: that very man was responsible for writing an algorithm that denied coverage to tens of thousands of people. He enriched the company.
Hold on. What's the recourse? Let's say that's true, and that may well be true. Then the question is, what's the recourse? Because if the recourse is shooting him in the back, we are no longer even remotely a civilized society. You may be right, but are you saying that's the recourse?
I am saying that you give a nation that is drug-addled and angry, and the one freedom that that has been expanded in America is the freedom to having unfettered access to guns. So you take an angry society that feel like they have no recourse. This is going to happen a lot. But I will say this: I can hold in my head two things. I can hold in my head the idea that a man is shot down in the middle of the streets, but I can also hold in my hand. And I feel bad for that. But men like him, who have the job that he has, as a matter of practice, deny coverage and health care and cost. So whether a person dies by a pen or a pistol, I think that I can hold in my heart sympathy for both men. But as a matter of practice, this industry, as a matter of practice, what is it? Delay, deny, defend. To enrich themselves off the pain and suffering of people, there is going to be a recourse. There's going to be a reckoning, and to pretend like it isn't is really disingenuous to me. This man was responsible for enriching that company by the suffering of other people, and it is sad as it isn't shocking.
But is it justified in any respect?
I tell you what, if I can only be honest with you, if I were on a jury hearing this trial, I would have to listen. I wouldn't be able to just say that my mind was made up. I think that I am sympathetic to the idea that people have gotten so frustrated with this industry and there's no recourse and nobody ever hears them that this is what we come to. I would have a hard time not being fair with it.
What you're saying is if you're on this jury, the strategy, if Luigi's attorneys take this strategy and put the healthcare system on trial, that you would, as a juror,
be open to finding him not guilty?
Despite the evidence that would also be presented that he walked up to this man on camera.
Look, he did it.
Right.
So are you saying that you put
that there's a justification that
you put his motivation on the stand, which is what you talked about with the algorithm, you would be inclined to find him not guilty?
Let me tell you something, man. I just watched 1,500 people do something in front of in plain sight and they were summarily dismissed. They have no. So we live in a country that decides
January
when
6th,
it is offended, and it's really. Kyle Rittenhouse murders 2 people. He goes on tour, enriches himself on tour. Luigi Mangione, he murdered somebody, and they're both, in my estimation, murderers. But one is lionized, one is criminalized. And they did exactly the same thing. And they both felt like they had noble causes. So what is wrong with us that we decide to ascribe whatever violence we agree with a deity, and the other one we don't?
Well, but you're no. You're talking about
two wrongs make a right.
You're also talking about one man who pardoned all these people versus a society and a jury that would find him not guilty because they like his cause?
Well, let me ask you something. Was Kyle Rittenhouse, didn't he murder 2 people? Wasn't he found not guilty? Wasn't he lionized? Didn't he go on tour right now?
Yeah.
Didn't he?
But DL, I think a lot of people, I would hope most, would feel like that felt wrong. It was wrong. So do we just say it's okay now going forward every time that there is a vigilante murder?
He was tried by a jury. They presented facts. He was tried by a jury, and he was acquitted, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? Look, he was acquitted, and they got into a whole thing about, was it self-defense? Did he intend, and everything else. Here, there's no issue. It is a bright line that he executed somebody because he didn't like his policy at United Healthcare.
If your actions result, let's be clear. The way that man and those companies make money, how do they make money? Is denying claims they're supposed to pay. So in that, there are people who are dying and being maimed because of it. This is not, come on. So if somebody presented me evidence like that and put the insurance company on trial, I think they'd have purchase. I really do. But you can't tell me that man's actions hasn't caused the death. It may be inadvertent, it's off the way, it's out of public view. But you're not telling men like that and women like that who truck in that industry, whose mantra, whose idea of enriching themselves is delay, deny, and defend. People die in that interim. People are dying, and they know it.
How would you feel? How would you feel?
I mean, he's right, and that should also be addressed.
I get it.
Absolutely right.
How would you feel if somebody has it out for a comedian who makes jokes about a particular race group and says, I'm going to take the law into my own hands. I'm going to bring a gun into the comedy club and do what I think is right.
I feel like I was in America. We've watched people get threatened with death for breaking home run records or getting jobs people don't get. America is a violent place. The prescription always for whatever you don't like has and always will be violence. And it's also, and we're making it easier and easier and easier to have weapons to exercise that violence. Let's be clear. It's easier to get a gun now than it ever has been. So don't tell me that you're shocked when people pick them up and use them as a prescription to the anger. It's really, we watch our schools we watch murder people walk into schools and mow them down and make more access to guns. People,
listen, I will say the one thing we clearly all agree on is that, because we talked about this just yesterday off camera, we were talking about this, it feels like America is more comfortable with violence
they are.
than it's ever been. And
let me just say one thing. DL, we're out of time. I just want to say one thing that I know is true. You're not getting on this jury.
No.
Yeah, they're not gonna get. No. You got an easy out on this one, man.
But I tell you what, man, if you gonna mess with people's deductibles, you better learn how to deduct. That's just real. People are angry. They are.
Yeah. No, they are.
Okay, you've spoken.
For sure.
You have spoken.
All right, DL. We'll talk to you next time, man.
All right, baby.
Thanks, DL. Wow. You might find him not guilty. Wow. Wow.
It's not. It feels weird to me, but that's not
feels
far-fetched.
Wrong to me. Okay, we're taking a break.
All right, when we come back, the battle between SNL and Amy Lou Wood, the White Lotus star, who was so upset by their skit on Saturday night where they mocked her and her teeth. Well, she said she got an apology. Hold on, hold the phone. I'll tell you what folks at SNL are telling us.
TMZ's got every freaking thing. Big celebs, big stories, big events.
Justin Timberlake made Portland kids' dream come true by joining a bike bus ride. And they always listen to Justin Timberlake.
Cry me a river when they fall. Yeah, right.
It's TMZ.
Amy Lou Wood, the star of White Lotus, who was upset, but maybe not, by the White Lotus spoof that SNL did.
I don't think it's understandably upset. I don't even think she was upset.
No, she was definitely upset. She posted it. I mean, unless she was just, what do you think? She was just pretending to be upset?
I'm having trouble understanding this one. I am having trouble understanding.
It didn't make a lot of sense to me because people had talked about Amy's teeth throughout the entire season of White Lotus, but that spoof on Saturday night obviously was some sort of, it crossed the line for her, and maybe it was just a matter of the straw that broke the camel's back. But
by the way, and I say that only because I loved her on this show, and I just think she is, to me,
and people had been talking about
she's so beautiful, and I think that's part of the feature. For me,
right. I don't get it. But once she said, after she posted about how upset she was, she said, well, someone from SNL did reach out and they've apologized, which struck us as kind of strange.
Weird that SNL would apologize. That felt odd to me.
For a bunch of reasons we'll get to in a moment. But we've spoken to some people at over at 30 Rock, and they say there was no apology. There was no official apology that was offered to Amy.
Maybe a cast member called. We don't know.
That's kind of what we're hearing, that maybe that's what they think happened, but nothing official.
Yeah, and also she had addressed this on social media, basically saying, there was pictures of her out crying yesterday, and she had basically posted on Instagram saying, listen, what the press made it seem that I was crying over all the drama surrounding SNL just wasn't the case. I was crying about something else. This whole story is very confusing to me. And also, I don't understand why she's so upset about it. I mean, SNL is known to be a show that has poked fun at people for years.
If SNL, and this is why it just seemed strange to me when she said that she got an apology. If SNL started issuing apologies every time they spoofed someone, they needed a separate, staff that was just like that, working the phones.
Right.
Hey, sorry we did that, and it would also.
I agree. I just do not. I don't think they did that. I just don't think they did that. And I think it may well have been a cast member who felt that maybe it hurt her feelings and just called.
Just said, like, we understand.
Yeah.
But nothing official.
What up, though, everybody? It's Mo from Battle Creek, Michigan. And I just want to say Amy did a phenomenal job on this season. And to get parodied by SNL, made it to the big times. But I just want to say, if In Living Color was around, Jim would have bodied that skit. I mean, that was crazy.
You ever looked at old In Living Color skits?
They're funny.
They're hilarious.
They're funny.
But there's just no way
that could go today.
90% of them would be done today.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of stuff.
Which is a shame.
Okay, taking a break.
All right. When we come back, all the excitement over the Blue Origin crew, the first all-female crew that went up. Not everyone impressed by their 4 minutes in 0G. And when we come back, there is one woman who is teeing off on them, what Emily Ratajkowski had to say about Blue Origin when we come back. A whole lot of conversation over a relatively brief rocket ride.
Relatively. It's 4 minutes.
Well, the whole trip is more than 4 minutes. They're, in zero gravity for 4 minutes.
Fair.
Look, there was a lot of celebration of this, and believe me, I get it. The all-female crew, and
really
I think it is amazing. The view.
Yeah.
And say what you want. If I had the opportunity and the money to do it, I would 1,000% do this. It is tremendous. So I get why they were all of the women aboard were so excited when they came back. But while a lot of people were watching at it marveling, there were some people who felt like this is, well, to borrow Emily Ratajkowski's word, disgusting. This is what she thought when she saw them arrive back on Earth and talk about what an amazing experience it was to be above the Earth and see it. She was not impressed by their words. Here's what she had to say.
That space mission this morning, that's entire. Like, this is beyond parody. Saying that you care about Mother Earth and it's about Mother Earth and you're going up in a spaceship that is built and paid for by a company that's single-handedly destroying the planet. Look at the state of the world and think about how many resources went into putting these women into space. For what? For what was the marketing there? And then to try to make it like, I'm disgusted, literally, I'm disgusted.
First of all, this is sort of like the new Disneyland. And they're going to make a commercial
tourism.
They're going to make a commercial venture out of this eventually, where it's going to become somewhat affordable. People are going to be able to
Probably
go
not
up.
affordable, but yes.
It's sort of like
the point is,
it's sort of like everything. I mean, computers were out of reach and then they weren't. Big screen TVs were out of reach and then they weren't. So
I can get a big screen TV for $150. You're not going to be able to fly to space for even $500.
I mean, who
all right?
knows what's going to happen in the future?
Right.
But Gayle King clapped back on this.
Yeah, and she thinks that this is pure misogyny, that they're coming after their crew in particular.
I was looking at the future of being able to produce crops that can withstand harsh environments, so we can look at food security here on Earth. And simultaneously, we also were able to certify that device so more people could do research on New Shepard.
So what do you think when people say, oh, it's frivolous? Number one, they call it a ride, which I find very irritating because they never say men went for a ride. I think the message that it sends is very, very powerful. And the people that say that, by the way, weren't there. And when you look at the work that Blue Origin does to keeping us safe and always trying to advance the cause and what they're trying to do with the company and how they operate. And I don't work for Blue Origin, but I think I was one of these people that go, I don't know why we got to do this until you educate yourself.
I got to say one thing about it, because I love Gayle.
The thing she said about a ride, I think you said that this morning in the morning meeting, right? That it's like a Disney ride.
Well, right, but I will say this, because I was a child of the space program, and I was mesmerized by it.
You were not part of the space program.
No, but I
watched it as a child.
It was the most spectacular thing in my childhood to see this. And, there was criticism way back then in the Mercury program. Why are we doing this? What's the point? Even going to the moon, people were saying it. So when Gayle says she's intimating that this is more of a female thing, I don't think so. I think it's more of a space thing, and that there has been that criticism.
And I've heard this criticism. Blue Origin has done these flights before, and I've heard this. People said it when Michael Strahan went up. People said it when William Shatner went up. Like, what's the point of this?
Not to this extent, you guys. It definitely feels like this specific launch was targeted because it was promoted as like all women. And then all of a sudden people were like, oh God, all they care about are their outfits and their hair. And, then it all of a sudden became like, okay, this is no longer about the research. It's about like looking cute and getting good like content.
But it's not about that. And you heard Aisha Bo, who was on part of the crew and is an actual engineer. Look, I don't know. I didn't know anything about these studies that they did. I just don't know how much they can study.
Can we be honest?
In a 10-minute trip.
Let's just be honest for a second. You got Gayle King, you got Lauren Sanchez, you got Katy Perry. It's 3 out of the 6 are very, very famous. You got Oprah Winfrey and Kris Jenner watching this. So it became a celebrity thing more so than any of the other flights.
Yes,
period.
Because they had more celebrities on it. Right. Usually they have one celebrity on.
And it opens that door of the criticism that's been going on for decades now. But I don't think it's a woman thing.
I think the problem that, and Gayle should have reworded this part differently, but like she keeps trying to defend it by saying like, oh, there's so much great research, you got to educate yourself. I think they need to lean into like, this is the new skydiving. Like, this is just the new thing you would do for like adrenaline junkies. I think if we leaned more into that, it would be like, okay, you're looking at it with different eyes, but because they're trying to make it seem like this is so groundbreaking for women. And I think that's where we're losing people on this.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kamar from Atlanta, and I just want to shut down all criticism. Space tourism, that is something that we want to do. That wasn't even on our bucket list, and now it is. So I just say kudos to them, and for all of the critics, I think that y'all just mad that y'all didn't get invited.
That very well may be for a lot of them. I know I would love an invite.
I would love it. God, just looking out that window was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into the bro code.
Or the uncle code, or nephew code. As it came up when Damon Wayans admitted last week that he had, shouldn't say admitted, he just revealed, he's like, yeah, I dated a woman who used to date one of my nephews. Well, we got one of the Wayans out, Marlon Wayans, and asked him about this. Is this a thing that his family discusses much? Was it an issue? Sounds like it is an issue.
He dated his nephew's ex. Damon, you gotta stop doing that. That ain't the first time Damon is the girlfriend stealing bandit in the Wayans family. You gonna stop this, Damon? You gonna stop this? We got a thing. Don't bring a girl around D to play it for real.
So this isn't the
Damon
first.
got an usher chain. After tonight, don't bring a girl around me. Even the ugly ones, he take them all.
He
I had one. I was like, there's no way he gonna want her. Short, unusually short. Only had 3 fingers. She found, there's something sexy about that little one. She makes me feel a certain way.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
He's definitely joking about this short woman with 3 fingers. That was a joke.
But first of all, Damon did not steal his nephew's girlfriend. They had broken up, and it just brings up this whole thing about the bro code. It's so dumb. This bro code. You don't own people and say, oh, that person's off limits because you once dated. You don't own people.
It is a slightly different within your own family.
It's over.
It makes family reunions awkward. That's all. That's all we're saying. It's not like
don't go to the family reunion. I mean, it's like to treat,
leave her at home.
To treat human beings like chattel makes no sense to me. Okay, let's take a break and take this a step further.
Yes, we will, and we will talk about actual incest, because that was a big topic on White Lotus this season. In fact, it was spoofed on SNL. But how is it sitting with actual survivors of incest? We're going to be joined by a woman who deals with counseling people who've been through this. How did they react to the most talked about scenes this season? So we talked earlier about the White Lotus spoof that SNL did, White POTUS and Amy Lou Wood, and how she feels about it.
By the way, hysterical.
It was hysterical. There was another part of that very same skit that referred to probably the most talked about scene from this previous season of White Lotus, and that is the incest scene where the characters Saxon and Lachlan, while in a...
It was a whole thing.
It was a whole thing, but basically, one of the brothers
got sexual with the other.
Sexual with the other brother. And it was a thing that played out over their reactions to it, but it was certainly on Saturday night used as the comic punchline of that skit. So how was that scene playing? Because people have talked about it so much. How is it playing with people who really are victims of incest, survivors of incest? Joining us now to talk about that is Diane Tarantini, who works for a group called 5 Waves, a nonprofit dealing with sibling sexual abuse survivors. Diane, welcome to TMZ Live.
Thank you so much. I'm psyched to be here.
We appreciate you being here. So, your reaction to this? I mean, everybody knows the scenes now, it's not just one, it's several.
Yeah, you're right. There was more than one scene.
You had
There
the
was one
kissing
at the end,
scene,
and
then
there
you
was
had the sexual pleasure scene.
Right.
And you had
then
things,
the flashbacks.
And then you had things leading up to it where you could tell there was, the two brothers in the same room where one was showing his butt to the other. What's your reaction to all of it?
Yeah, so I've watched all 3 seasons of White Lotus, and then on season 3, you do see those breadcrumbs coming in. And right before it happened, I grabbed my husband's leg and said, "Oh my gosh, they're actually going to go there." And I've done a lot of work in this area, meaning therapy, because I am a survivor of sibling sexual abuse. The broad umbrella term is incest, but we who have been abused by a sibling call it sibling sexual abuse. So I've done a lot of work here. I'm a body safety educator in schools. I stand in front of middle schoolers and tell them my older brother was my abuser. So I've got a pretty tough skin with regards to this, but the next morning, I got online bright and early, and I put up a warning on a survivor page and said, if you watch White Lotus, be real careful because this is going to be coming at you.
Diane, was it upsetting? And I know, as you said, you could see the breadcrumbs. You knew that they were going to go there. But to actually watch it, while I think most people are watching it and there's a shock value, and certainly SNL played it for a laugh, but for survivors, it's not necessarily that lighthearted, I would imagine.
Not at all. I think they had a couple missed opportunities. I would have liked them to pull the camera back so that you didn't, and just imply it, but they went all the way and they showed all the things. And when I posted those warnings online, people said, was there a trigger warning? A lot of people wanted a trigger warning. But I'm pretty stoic about it. But people I talk to that are survivors of this particular kind of abuse, they were re-triggered, very upset. Other people just said, I'm not going to watch it. Thank you for telling me. I really would have liked to see, at the end of the episode, resources given. I've seen this on shows where suicide has been included.
Yeah.
And that was also in this season.
I got to ask you this because when you mentioned how it kind of resolved, it was confusing on, first of all, who did what to whom initially because you weren't quite sure. And then when you found out, it was like, what was the motivation? And at the end, Lachlan looks at Saxton and says, I'm a people pleaser. And I felt like you kind of wanted that.
It was like a comedic.
It was the comedic version.
It was a very comedic way to just sort of toss it all aside.
I'm wondering how that struck you.
It looked like they were just dealing with trauma via humor because, I mean, Saxon threw up like once or twice. His personality totally deflated. And then, of course, Lachlan is saying, I think I want to stay in Thailand for a whole year. So for them to laugh it off at the end, I think was them dealing with their, the trauma of what they did, because both of them kind of looked like they were pretty freaked out when they actually remembered with the help of the women who were in the room. I think they were just, trying to use guy humor or something with that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Diane, we really appreciate you being here and giving us that perspective.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it, Diane.
Her organization, again, is called 5waves.org, and you can find more information and resources there.
Okay, we are going to take a break.
All right. When we come back, more answers in the mysterious deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy. What investigators found on their property that is pretty shocking. We will tell you when we come back. When Gene Hackman died, there were a lot of questions once the coroner came out and said that his wife, we know that Gene was a heart issue, but his wife, Betsy, died from something called hantavirus. It is very rare, and it is something that
you contracted from rodents.
From rodent droppings. So part of their investigation, they were looking around the Hackman's property, and what they turned up was an incredible hazard, and it makes sense why she died from hantavirus. They found lots of dead rats and A lot of rat droppings.
Wow.
Well, according to the health report that we had obtained, it was across 8 different detached buildings. There was 2 casitas, 3 sheds, and 3 garages. And in these buildings, they found live rodents, they found dead rodents, and they also found a nest, a live nest of rodents. And as you said, that is spread for hantavirus. The disease is spread through urine, through feces from those rodents. And it's just so astonishing because actually in the main residence, they didn't find anything, and they actually listed it as a low risk on that property. So inside the house of Betsy and Jean was low risk, but in those other areas it was high risk. And they also found live traps that somebody had set. It's unclear if Betsy was the one.
So they knew they had a problem.
It was an active infestation. Yes.
Yeah, they knew they had a problem.
And maybe she had been actually tending to that.
To the problem, and then contracted it. Oh my God,
it's
terrible.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Lisa Perron from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. It's really sad to hear that Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy's property was infested with vermin, but I'm glad that the recent assessment from the health department has shed more light on their unfortunate deaths.
It was so impossible to have predicted this was.
Remember that day we were trying to figure out what happened there. It was so mysterious.
Our theories were so off.
Yeah.
So off. What else you guys want to talk about?
Good afternoon, Mike Gallagher here in Chicago. It makes all the sense in the world that Diddy has decided now to get a black female on his legal team. I would like to hope that is always in the plans. His imagery to women is just completely obliterated. So, he has to do what he has to do. I think he'll make it make it really interesting to watch.
Well, it's going to be interesting is how involved will this new lawyer be? Because
can they find someone with?
They'll be able to find somebody, but the issue is, how do they get up to speed in 2.5 weeks? I mean, that's going to be crazy.
It's a lot of cramming.
One more.
Stevie J, Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm here to talk about Will Smith. I think it's incredible that he's taking the time to get back into his artistry. I do wish that a lot of people would stop commenting on who he is as a person and stepping back into his music and doing the thing that he loves to do. I think it's incredible that he's back.
Yeah, but it didn't do so good.
Not on the charts.
That's the problem.
See how he does on the road.
Okay, we're taking a break.
When we come back, Lil Nas X, in a very, speaking of mysterious illnesses, was in the hospital, said half his face is paralyzed. You're going to see how he is starting to bounce back from this in a very Lil Nas X way. You got to leave it to Lil Nas X, man. He always finds a way to bounce back from things.
With humor.
Yeah, with humor and in his way. But he had posted a video of himself in a hospital bed, which immediately concerned his fans. And he said he was unable to move one side of his face.
That happened to Justin Bieber. Do you remember?
I do remember Justin
Bieber
went
through this. He recovered from it, obviously.
Right. And it looks like Lil Nas X is on the comeback himself because, well, this is the latest video he's posted.
It's getting better, y'all, I promise. It's gonna take a lot more than that to keep a bad bitch down. This eye wonky bitch, but I'm not.
Okay, so here's the
how
thing.
do you turn a hospital visit into a thirst trap like that?
Hey, totally turn it into a thirst trap. But keep that hat for the Kentucky Derby.
It would definitely be a hit.
He is funny.
They might want him to wear a shirt though at Churchill Downs. I'm thinking.
I'm not sure he'll take the cue.
No.
We will talk to you tomorrow.